What's going on, everybody? Okay here, and today we're talking about the Guilty Gear Strive Season 3 patch, and specifically I want to talk about the biggest winners and losers of the patch. So as a summary, basically everyone wins, like not just the characters in the game but also like the players, because in the previous video I made about the biggest changes to the game, there's just a ton of system mechanics and balance changes and just a bunch of fun things to mess around with. There was a patch in the winter of 2022, the season 2.5 patch, that yes, it was an update, but most characters didn't get like a lot of stuff, and it was basically working with the framework that they set in season 2. For some people that's still fun and there's still stuff to explore, but for other people, I know some people might have felt like the game was kind of getting stale. So just them doing a lot of stuff like adding a bunch of mechanics, changing how the burst works, plus all the changes and new moves that characters are getting, plus them saying that they're going to add more new moves to other characters, is just good for the game. It's good to freshen up the game. But with that being said, I want to look at a couple of characters that I think got like really good changes, like clearly good changes. I do think there are other characters that might take a little bit more time to get fleshed out, but these are just like reports I've been hearing, things I've been seeing from matches, and just a little bit of my own analysis, because, you know, Arxis patch notes, right? We made it better, but it don't tell us so. So first is going to be Sin. So Sin got a bunch of changes. I'm sure if you use like any social media like Twitter, I guess it's called X now, but screw that. You probably have heard people be like, oh, Sin's added to the game. People typically tend to, you know, over-exaggerate takes on characters, but Sin has actually been insanely buffed. One really big buff to him comes from his backdash. So he's always had this long backdash. It's pretty characteristic for him. But in the last patch, his backdash was 5-frame invincible, which is pretty typical for a middleweight character in the game. And in this game, all the backdashes are generally pretty universal. Your backdash either invincible for 4 frames, 5 frames, or 6 frames. So he had a 5-frame backdash, which the least recovery you see on 5-frame backdashes tend to be like 18 frames, like Happy Chaos. The most would be 21, which I believe, one, Baiken, my main, has a 21-frame backdash, and so does Asuka, I believe. But he was a character that had a 5-frame backdash with 28 frames of recovery. So despite the distance, it was very easy to hit his backdash. And this was especially painful when you compare him to characters like Chip, for example, who have a long backdash, but Chip recovers way faster than his. They decided to sort of keep the distance that he travels, but upgrade the amount of invincibility he has. So he has a 6-frame invincible backdash now, but then he has less recovery on it too. So now it's 24 frames. So at this point, he kind of lines up with characters like Nagoro Yuki with a backdash, considering he also has basically the best DP in the game besides Leo Whitefang, in my opinion. A lot of people talk about his button buffs. For example, Far/Slash being buffed is a really big one. A buff I don't hear that many people talking about is actually about his 5H. So this combined with his Elk Hunt buff I also think is pretty good. So in the previous version, he had no attack level 4 attacks at all. So every move in this game has, let's say, canned numbers that they use to determine how much hit stun and block stun attacks have. So jabs tend to have low attack levels with low hit stun and low block stun, and then big slashes tend to have high block stun and high hit stun. Not having an attack level 4 move is not necessarily a weakness for all characters. So for example, Happy Chaos doesn't have any attack level 4 moves, but he's always considered top tier. In Sin's case, the old Elk Hunt was slower. I believe it was like 24 frames. Now it's much faster. It's at 21 frames. So with the new buff, there is a gap here, but this means, for example, the opponent can no longer like jump out of it, for example. So it becomes much harder to disrespect this string. Because of the additional block stun the move has, it also is safer on block than before at -2. This is extremely powerful for a move like this, especially because it hits so far. If you pay attention to the range he's at, you could pretty much position yourself to be at a good range where he could use either buttons like this or kicks or things like that. Finally, the last big change that they made is that doing a car cancel after any special move doesn't use stamina anymore, so he's able to use his resources in a much more liberal fashion than before. Next, I want to talk about souls. So when I read the patch notes, I was a little worried that between a kind of universal change that many characters have is that if you have a special move that has a follow-up, that follow-up on the counter hit won't lead into a big combo. So this affects both characters on the screen, right? So Baiken, famously, this would literally end you if you got hit by this in the corner. And Soul has the Bandit Revolver follow-up that he had. So I had a feeling that his meter options might be a little bit weaker, and like his jump scares and stuff might be a little bit weaker. But seeing how his new normals interact in the game, because again, like I kind of joked about this at the beginning of the video, but Arxis isn't super clear about how things actually change sometimes when they word things. Seeing him in action, he definitely looks better. Mainly is 2K being 5 frames now helps him both on offense and defense. And Farslash has interactions in a pretty advantageous way. So the main thing is how it hits on backdash now. It doesn't really like knock you away. So notice how she kind of like floats before landing right in front of you. So backdashing Farslash now is way less of a thing than it used to be. Him being able to convert this is a huge deal. Soul is a character that's good in a wide variety of situations, so something that buffs his conversion ability, which is already good compared to a lot of characters, I think is pretty important and definitely stands out. So then we have Potemkin. Potemkin actually, it's a pretty simple one. It's simply that his jab hits crouchers, so most characters, basically every character at least has a 5 frame move as their fastest attack. The reason being is that the throw invincibility is 5 frames, so you need an attack that's 5 frames in order to mash out of throw setups if you read them. If you use something that's too slow, even if you mash, you get punished just like that. So Potemkin not having a 5 frame move that was easy to use in this situation and defensive situations in general made him really get bullied on defense. He got some other changes to his toolset too, for example like slide head having less recovery, or flick being faster, but I think really like the big thing and the main thing that I saw people talking about, because actually on Twitter too, I asked, hey everybody, how are you feeling about your character? Pretty much every Potemkin player was like, thank God that we could use this move now. And then last character I want to look at is actually Faust. So Faust got a few changes too, but probably the most important one, and this is going to be weird if you haven't seen this before, but his item throw now has a different version where he stores the item. So it kind of looks like this, but it was discovered pretty quickly that he can do, I'll just do it. So he's able to actually store the item and it has cancelable recovery. So if you're like a Smash player, for example, these are, what do they call it, right? Interruptible as soon as frames. So it has like something like that on there. So I think this is actually really helpful for him. So while he does have other new stuff, while I hate item throw characters, by the way, I do think it's a kind of interesting change because one of the main strategies against Faust, and Faust is an item throw character, I really do think Arxis wants characters to do what they're like supposed to do. In old versions of Guilty Gear, you could only throw like one item, and sometimes it would be counterplay to items of, oh, you leave the item there on purpose so Faust can't throw another item. In this game, you can't really do stuff like that because he can throw multiple. There's not really a limit. So the downside of this though is that this move just takes a long time compared to item throws in basically every other Arc System Works game. So I feel like there are matchups where, especially against fast characters like Chip and Geo, where he can't use this move very liberally. Usually you'd only see them use it after like they burst you or something like that. Where now with the item store, he can set up situations, especially because he usually plays from like a pretty far range where yes, he's disadvantaged on stuff, but it's hard to like capitalize on that thing, and he could play more guessing games with the opponent this way, which I do think is overall a good change. Like I said at the beginning, basically everyone is winning. I do want to say there is one character in the game that is not so happy right now. I've only heard a couple of people complaining about their characters, but there's one character in the game, and I know people are gonna get mad, but let's just look at the facts. Please don't get mad at me. I don't play this character. Okay, and we need to talk about this character because real talk, he didn't really needed to be nerfed like this. We're going to talk about Zato 1. Truly, if there's a character that really needs to be hit in the knees at this point, I mean, yeah, there's a guy with a gun that they could have done something to. But Zato has two pretty big nerfs. But there's like other stuff that he has that's weaker than before. The main nerfs that he has is that his flight does not last as long as before. This one, depending on who you talk to, you might think it's overstated. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm like, well, you know, some characters can't get up there and like blah, blah, blah. But he can't double jump. So there's like a back and forth there. But the major one, probably the absolute biggest nerf that he has, is how long Eddie is gone for. So any in Strive used to come back in 3 seconds, which is way faster than classic Guilty Gear. In like Exert and XX, Eddie or Zato, depending on the game, has like Shadow Gallery, the flight is way faster. In XX he has like No Beater, depending on the version. No Beater is really broken. That's the old version of the frog where he shoot claw up at you. And on a lot of summons that he does, there's a lot of like rock paper scissors guessing games that you can play where you can like dash at him and maybe go under the frog, or you can interrupt this, or you read frog and you just dash under it. So there's a lot of these type of guessing games that are really fast, but it's kind of hard to learn. With the old flight, the combination of old flight and controlling space, you can get Eddie back pretty easily. So they decided to make him closer to classic Guilty Gear, and they were like, actually this stuff is pretty good. And now it takes longer for Eddie to come back. That being said though, there's also a case you could make of maybe they're scared of Zato being too good because they added Wild Assault, right? I have Baiken trying to dash out of block stun, right? So when you use, he has a blue Wild Assault, so he has a way to basically guarantee 50-50s, but they also added Deflect Shield, which is, I feel like, made for characters like fighting Ino or fighting Zato, characters that have like these high-low type things, or maybe like Jacko too, characters that like just stay on you, stay on you, stay on you. So I don't know, but I think this is a character that's definitely feeling it the most. You see on Twitter people using hashtag Free Eddie and stuff like that. You might be surprised that I'm not saying characters like Mei. So Mei players were absolutely dooming, but it looks like she's more reworked than nerfed, and she has like a lot of new tactics and stuff. So that's why you might notice that basically all the characters that I talked about in this video, it's all like extremely direct. It's things you can see like right away. Like you're like, oh, Soul's Far Slash is better when you hit backdashes. Oh, Faust, the item store into cancel is like really good. Or Sin's buttons are blatantly better than before. He's able to move around better. Because of the changes to the system mechanics and the characters, we need to see how those work combined to see what type of game the game turns into. Let me know what you guys are feeling though. Who do you think is a secret top tier, or who do you think is actually nerfed? Let me know in the comment sections down below. As usual, like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.